it does not bother me at all. Like, I think we kind of need to meet people where they're at. And when we start using really like overly medical technical terms, people get lost. And so, you know, I mean, I could be the vulva whisperer, but you know, I feel like people
feel like, what is that?
I think we kind of know when we say vagina, we know what part of our body we're talking about.
Right.
We have a
guest. Look who we got. We got a guest. Very special guest. Rachel can't wait to talk to you, Sara.
Let me go get
she's got a book of questions for you.
That's okay. Hold on.
Pinkies, I want to welcome our guest, Miss Sara Reardon. She is a, how me say it right, pelvic health physical therapist.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And she's gonna teach us about ourselves pretty much, because we don't know shit. In all the years we've had this vagina, we still don't know shit about it.
You have to say her name how it goes. You have to say it.
She is a vagina whisperer.
Y'all hilarious.
Exactly.
She speaks vagina. Okay.
Yes. I can't wait to get into it.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, awesome. Perfect.
Good. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, perfect. Sorry, I'm normally at a desk, but we've got my kiddos home today, so you know how that goes.
You don't have to explain it to us.
Locked in the bedroom.
Exactly.
Here are your snacks. Just go over there and you tap it.
I'm downstairs, so I have to say, don't disturb me. And sometimes she'll come downstairs like, and I'm like,
so fun. I know. Go away. Okay, let me close some of my other browsers so that we get better reception. Hold on. Okay.
Is that how we get it?
Okay. I don't know if it helps, but I just do it.
Okay.
Like, it sounds like it does.
Okay, cool. I can't wait. So let me know when you're ready. I don't know what page to start.
So we're just going to chat, talk, y'all ask questions. We'll kind of do whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That works.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
All right.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Wait, Kitty, do you have something? Because I'm ready. Okay, so I want to first of all get
bullets.
Yeah, because she already introduced you, gave a description of what you are and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, before we ask our guests to say let our pinkies know who you are, a little bit about yourself and what you do, and she gave you a rundown. So I'm just going to get right into it, starting with the name.
Okay.
Why the Vagina Whisperer?
Why not? So I graduated from physical therapy school. My training is as a physical therapist. And when I was in PT school, I just thought, this could be interesting as a woman to learn more about my body. And I did a residency in pelvic floor therapy, and I loved it. And I love helping people with something they didn't know there was help for. And so when I graduated, all of my friends would get together on an annual basis for 4th of July. And when they started hearing about what I was doing, all of their moms would end up asking me questions, and we'd be sitting in the hot tub and they'd be saying, let me tell you about this. And I pee my pants, what I do for this. And so all of my friends started calling me the Vagina Whisperer. And so they really deserve the credit.
They gave you the name.
They gave me the name. I was not even clever enough. And so when I started my Instagram, it was really for my group of friends. We were all pregnant and having babies. So I chose that name really because it was just kind of a nickname from that group.
That was awesome. That's kind of smart, actually.
On time. So what does one do? What does a Vagina Whisperer do?
As a pelvic floor physical therapist, I work with muscles, and I work with the muscles in the pelvic region. So those muscles are responsible for supporting our organs, our bladder, our rectum, which hold poop, our uterus, which holds a growing baby. So as mamas, we know that those muscles go through a lot of changes during pregnancy and postpartum, and they help keep peeing, they help keep pooping, they allow for vaginal intercourse and vaginal birth. So they have a lot of really important functions, and we don't often think about them as muscles down there. So if the muscles are tight, I teach people how to relax them. If they're weak, I teach them how to strengthen them and kind of coordinate them properly.
Okay.
How do you know if you have a weak pelvic muscle?
Okay.
So, it's based on two things, Kita. Some of it is symptoms. So some of the more common things we'll see are if people, pee their pants with a cough or sneeze, or, when they're exercising, or if they feel like a pressure or heaviness, or even decreased sensation with sex. Some of those are more signs or symptoms of weakness, but also when you see a physical therapist like myself, we test the muscles by doing an intravaginal assessment. So literally inserting my finger into the vagina, asking someone to squeeze around it, and we can give it a muscle strength grade to see how strong their muscles are.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that threw me off a little bit.
Which part threw you off?
the demonstration.
Yeah, I know. And that's like the finger and the whole demo. But that's really, it's kind of like working with a gynecologist, that they do something similar.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost good to kind of let women know what to expect. So when they come in, sometimes I'll have my moms and they're like in their workout gear and they're like, I'm ready for PT. And I'm like, it's a different kind of PT, So it's good to just kind of explain to them what to expect. And, it's really, I think, really informative, because so few of us have ever connected with this part of our body, and we don't even know what it does and what it can do.
So I don't have a problem. Sometimes, I lose the sensation of catching the urine, so I have to wear like panty liners if I laugh or sneeze or cough. But I don't have a problem with intercourse, the hold in intercourse. Mm-hmm. So what would mine be, like a medium?
Well, it's hard to say, Rachel. I'd have to assess you. But, it's often not that you have all the problems. It usually presents with one of the problems. And so one of the important things, though, is I tell people, just like any other muscle in your body, you want to use it when you need it. Yeah. So if you find yourself having a little leakage when coughing or sneezing, if you can catch that cough or sneeze before it happens, and I encourage people to kind of tighten their muscles and do a Kegel contraction, which is like a tightening of the pelvic floor before they cough or sneeze. And that can help prevent some of the leakage. During intercourse, you may be a little bit more in tune, or you may not have any issues at all. But it usually isn't like everything's going, out the window. It's usually that people find, this feels a little different, this feels a little different, and then they'll come in and talk to us and get an assessment.
Okay.
So you do believe in the Kegel or Kegel, however you pronounce it.
Both ways are fine. So if it's weakness, if you do have weakness, I think that's definitely something that can be helpful. Just like if you have a weak bicep, you're going to do bicep curls.
Right.
The tricky part is about Kegels, y'all, is that a lot of women don't know how to do them properly. We kind of just read about them in a magazine, or a doctor gives us a brochure, and that's not an effective way to teach someone. Or that people are doing them and it's not what they need to be doing. Oftentimes, people have a lot of tension in their muscles. Mm-hmm. So we actually see women oftentimes who have more tension, and that can present like painful intercourse or painful pelvic exams, difficulty emptying their bladder, difficulty pooping. So, and they're doing Kegels thinking that's going to help, but it's actually making their problem worse. So, yeah. So it's not like a cookie-cutter approach. Yeah. So Kegels aren't for everyone.
Okay. So do bigger penises help the pelvic floor muscles?
They may help the pelvic floor muscles feel good, but if you, not necessarily. I think it just depends. If you've got a lot of tension, a big penis may be really painful, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you have a little more laxity or weakness, a big penis may feel more comfortable. So I don't think it's as like a good or bad. I think it's just, it's not a one size fits all. It's definitely just depends on the person and their pelvic floor. And Again, it's different for everybody. Some people, depending on what kind of workouts they do or how many babies they've had, or if they have constipation, they strain a lot. Like everybody's pelvic floor is a little bit different, just like everybody has different, booty muscles or arm muscles or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So how do you do this right now? Because, everything is Zoom related. So how do you have a Zoom exercise class? Like, do I just put the camera down to my vagina and let you see in there? Or you can like, and does this happen in a group setting where everybody just puts the camera up?
No, we don't do Kegel classes, but there are some, like, we do want to kind of maintain some privacy because they're medical, exams, but for video calls, oftentimes it's a lot of education. So it's people saying, hey, I just had a baby. How do I get back to exercise? Or I had a cesarean birth and my scar is really tight. Can you show me how to massage it? Or, I'm having pain with sex. What are some stretches I can do to help relax my muscles? So a lot of it's education. Occasionally we do have people who say, hey, can you assess this via video or photo? And we've had people do that as well, but it's definitely in a private, closed environment. Video virtually, but most often it's just a lot of it's education. I mean, nobody teaches us about this stuff. Like, like how to pee, how to poop, how to birth a baby. No, it's just kind of like we just do it, and then we don't know we're doing anything wrong until we start having problems. So a lot of it's education.
Yeah. Because I learned recently, like I think maybe it was during my pregnancy or thereafter, like squatting is really good. When you're pregnant.
Yes.
Even sitting on that exercise ball helps.
Yeah.
And what does that do specifically? How does that help?
So squatting itself helps relax your pelvic floor muscles. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm like obsessed with this little stool that you use when you poop called the squatty potty.
Yes.
It will change your life. And it's because it puts you in a squatting position to relax the opening for pooping. Well, we also need to relax the opening for birth. So a lot of people do a deep squat and hold that squat for a long time during birth. But the exercise ball kind of opens up your pelvis. You can do little hip circles on it. You can do little rotations, and that helps just give your pelvis a little mobility. Because for birth, we want to create space in there. We want the baby to kind of descend down and have space to kind of exit the birth canal versus everything being really, we always think of like keep everything tight and strong, but in birth, that's not necessarily optimal towards the end.
So do you prefer in-person or online PT visits?
Both. So I'm a people person. So I love working with people in person. I like, my husband right now is working from home and I get to go into my clinic and see people and I love it. I mean, I think as any physical therapist you talk to, it's about the treatment, but it's also just about the connection with people and relationships.
Right.
The thing I love about online though, is that a lot of us are busy and we're moms and we can't get away to make an appointment and especially during COVID. So I love that it gives women the ability to get resources and help when they're not able to attend in person. So both are great. I don't think that online will ever replace in person, but I think it does kind of fill a void to help give people more access to therapy services.
Does it bother you when women use the word vagina instead of vulva or vulva?
Yeah. That's a great question. And because they're different and a lot of people don't know they're different. So the vulva is kind of the whole external area with your labia, your urethral opening, your clitoris, your vagina. And the vagina is just the vaginal opening. It does not bother me at all. Like I think we kind of need to meet people where they're at. And when we start using really like overly medical technical terms, people get lost. And so, I could be the vulva whisperer, but, I feel like people
like, what the fuck is that?
I know. I think we kind of know when we say vagina, we know what part of our body we're talking about.
Right.
But no, I think it's, I'm not a super technical person. Like I'll say poop instead of like defecate. Or I think it's just we kind of need to meet people where they're at a little bit, and also not like be too humorous about this part of our body, but like be candid about it. Let's talk about it, because we're not talking about it enough,
Right.
So I'm down for whatever, but I don't use a lot of like pet terms, like other words that people may use to refer to their something like that, or coochie or tata or cha-cha or whatever. Like I don't use those terms. I mean, I do keep it medical-ish,
In your opinion, what's the best tool or tools a woman should use for her period or menstruation?
I've really, there's so many, and I'd love to hear what even you guys think, because I think it's depending on your life stage, it's different for everyone. I grew up, my mom gave me a book and a box of tampons when I got my period and was like, let me know if you have questions. And then that was it.
How old were you?
I was 10, so it was kind of like, which was young, but I had older sisters, I have a twin sister. So, you help a sister out, but, I think that we have to find what works for everybody. And now the great thing is there's so many products. So you have menstrual cups, you have disposable discs, you've got pads and liners and tampons and period underwear. I mean, that's awesome, because we have options now as women versus like, okay, you can insert this in your vagina, or you can wear this big bulky pad that isn't comfortable and gets scrunchy up in your underwear. So I think, again, women are recognizing that we have needs, and we're coming up with products to meet those needs, which is awesome.
I hated using those pads, because that's all that we could use.
I know.
Those were the worst. And then you have leakage, and then you're embarrassed, and you're like, oh my, that's just not a good time. And definitely having a talk, like a real educational class, because we both have 2 daughters.
Oh, nice.
We both have one, our oldest, that are going through their cycles now.
Absolutely.
And I'm in between. Well, my daughter was excited to get her period. In the back of my mind, I'm like, what the fuck what are you excited about?
you don't know.
You must not know what's about to happen. So she's like, I can't wait to get my period. Mommy, what's going to happen? What is going to look like? What? I was like, okay, well, we can have this talk if you're ready. And so I explained to her, so it's going to come, it's going to last between 3 to 7 days. You're going to bleed. You're going to have some cramps. It's okay. If you need to go to the bathroom when you're at school, just let the teacher know what's going on. It's okay. But now that she's gotten it, and it's been almost a year now that she's had it, I can tell when she's on it, because she is the worst. Irritable every day, all day. She fights with her sister. She disrespects me, and that's what we got to change. But anyway, that's another story. But I know when it's there. She don't like to talk about it now, and I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to.
So I started when I was 9, and my uncle's girlfriend was telling me about it. She had all of these things laid out. She had pads, she had tampons, she had the wipes, all of these things. And I was kind of embarrassed, because I thought I hurt myself while I was asleep. So I got up and changed all of my clothes. I go back to bed, and then I'm still bleeding like somebody attacked me. My daughter is the opposite of Kita's daughter. She was completely embarrassed. And she almost to the point to where she thought she was going to get in trouble. Like, I'm bleeding, and I don't know what happened. And I'm like, well, why are you so afraid? I think we don't talk about enough is the emotional side and the stressful side of it. We tell them what you can wear, how to clean up, but we don't let them know there are some, you will be irritable. You will be more emotional and more vulnerable. We don't talk about that side as much. But I asked you because, you're the professional, and I wanted to know what was your opinion, because Keita and I don't have it because we both have IUDs. So we don't get a menstrual anymore. And I wanted to know from a professional what you thought was best, even for our children who are like 10 and 11 at this point.
Yeah, y'all are amazing, because I think to even have the awareness to think about, first of all, nobody said to me, these are the different options you have, so it just even the practical tips of it, which can alleviate some stress of like, okay, where, like, if you can't put a tampon in at home, like what are you going to do when you're at school, you know? So it's like starting to really think about these things, but also the things that do go along with it, the emotional stuff. I mean, that's a big piece that even I think as older women, we don't always recognize. Like I'm like snapping at my kids and like, that's why, you know? And I'm like, you standing at the counter eating weird foods and like sleeping a ton. I'm like, that's why, you know? So it's like just having that awareness and connection. So I've switched now that I know more about pelvic health to all organic cotton products. So I do feel like there's chemicals in some of those pads and tampons that we weren't aware of. So I've switched to all organic, and I also started using a menstrual cup. And so I'll use that for some of my heavier flow days and then switch to some, you know, more disposable products at the end because I have a heavier cycle now after having babies. And so that allows me to work a full day, not having to run to the bathroom in between. So I think it just depends on somebody's symptoms, but, you know, I've kind of had this algorithm every month about like, what do I use, what days? But I do think using more natural products I've found to be more helpful.
Yeah, because we started purchasing the natural pads because we do Jewel. And I know that there was a new product that came out, the Honey Pot, which was part of a big, controversy. And I didn't learn it until last year that there was so many chemicals in the pads that we use and the tampons that we use, and we're putting it in a very precious, a very intricate part of our bodies, and we didn't even know this. Like,
yeah, and you don't like. We just don't. Again, we kind of don't know what we don't know. I mean, this is probably TMI, which is my specialty.
There's no such thing as
nothing is ever TMI.
After having kids, I was like sitting down one day, I'm like itching down there, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I go see my doctor, and she's like, you have like dermatitis from a panty liner. And this is like liners I've used my whole life. Yeah. And now all of a sudden my tissues are more sensitive after kids, and I'm like, I'm having reactions, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the Vagina Whisperer is having vagina problems. I'm like, you would think I would know. And I'm like calling the doctor, stat, something's going on. But you know, so then I switched and I said, oh, that's it. Like I need something that's more natural. And until you kind of have those experiences or somebody tells you differently, you don't even know that some of these products can have those chemicals, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's better when we know that we shouldn't even allow ourselves or our children to go through that. You know, we just, this product you use for this time, and then that's it. If they want to venture off when they're older and they're buying their own products, then they'll have those experiences. But for us, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, my daughter is mentally good, because I noticed, you know, she wasn't even here. She was, you know, out of town with her family. And they were like, you know, baby has been really emotional, really irritable. She's fighting with everybody. And then she's like, oh, she got her cycle. So like, we know why she's been ready. And so when she moves that way at home, I'm like, do you have all of your things? I even give her a bag. You know, you have this bag, because I didn't get bags when I was growing up of extra underwear, extra products, cleaning, wipes, and all of this. So I say, keep this in your backpack, or if you're going to carry a purse, put it in your purse, because you don't ever want to be somewhere, especially school nowadays. Kids are so critical, and then this happens.
So mean.
You're completely thrown off, and then you run to the nurse. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, and you can't undo that once that happens. Yeah, so totally. You gotta be prepared. So I just make sure, even with the pain, I said you may cramp, and you may have a headache, and you may feel all of these things. So I just want to make sure that, you know, my kids are physically okay, and they have what they need also to safeguard all of this that's going to happen.
Yeah. Sarah, what was your experience when you got your first period?
Y'all, it was probably one of the most memorable days. I was 10. Okay. I was 10, and I was getting braces at the orthodontist office.
Oh my God.
I know. I mean, you get braces and you get your period the same day, and you're like, this is the worst day of my life. Yes. I mean, at 10, you're like, this is the worst day. So I remember I was in the orthodontist office where you're about to sit in that chair for like 3 hours, you know, to get this metal mouth. And then I remember going to the bathroom, and I was like, Mom, I'm bleeding. And she goes, I don't have anything with me. You're just going to have to wait till after your braces are on. So you're like, for 3 hours, I'm laying in that chair thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it was fine. Nothing happened. It was mild. And then, we get home and she, again, then gives me my book and tampons or whatever. And it was kind of like, that was the day. I'll never forget it because it was the same day. I got thinking, how is this? Like, this is the worst day ever. But, to my mom's credit, like, she didn't know. I think for us, it's like we're learning how to educate about this. And I have other women ask me all the time, like, how do you talk to your kids about this? I'm like, you just have to start talking. Like, if we don't get comfortable with it, we're not going to help them get comfortable with it. So we have to start doing our work and talking about this as women and to help the next generation.
Yeah, because Rachel and I were talking before you came on.
What's that?
Did the book really help you? Because I
don't even think I read it.
I know people that get books too, and then I said, my daughter started her cycle. What are we gonna do? As a group, and they're like, I gave my daughter a book. I'm like, what the hell? You want to read?
No. I don't even think I read it. Like, it was like, no.
Was it like one of those little pamphlets with the pictures?
No, I remember it being like pink and like cardboard, and it had like colorful pictures, and you're supposed to like, flip the board book and about like periods and stuff. But even back then, like, even if you remember taking sex ed in high school, it's like it's all biological. Nobody's really telling you the nitty gritty and going into the details and even the emotional stuff, so.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not. I know in middle school, like, we would have a girls forum. Like, every year we would do it, and it would be our gym teacher, who was also our cheer coach, drill team coach. So we not only participated in this forum, but we were also cheerleaders and we were on the drill squad. So we had a little bit more intimate relationship with her. So she would talk about those things, but it was still, like you said, it'd be a broad conversation, nothing really in depth about what to do and to how to handle it and what to expect. Yeah. So what we learned was mild, and I just can only imagine how they learned it when, the generation before them.
Yeah. So. Probably they weren't even getting books, Yeah,
I was going to say, watch this short film.
No, in black and white, right? Like,
exactly. So I want to talk about lube.
Let's talk about it.
Are all lubes created equal? And which do you suggest for vaginal dryness and anal? And what do you say to someone who doesn't have it, and uses Vaseline or some kind of home stuff instead?
Okay, this is a whole can of worms we're going to open. So lubricants, I personally and professionally recommend water-soluble lubricants. So water-soluble lubricants dissolve into the tissues. They can kind of dry up a little bit faster because it's like water-based. But what that means is if they dry up, they're not harboring or kind of letting bacteria hang out in the area, which is ideal. So I recommend water-soluble lubricants. My favorite one is called Slippery Stuff. It's what I use in the clinic. It's what I recommend my patients get. You can get it on Amazon. And I like it. It's not too tacky. It's not too goopy. It's like, I prefer it. And that's for vaginal intercourse. For anal intercourse, you need something that's a little less water soluble. So there's one that's actually I use in my clinic, and it's actually a medical grade one, but it's called Surgilube, and they use it in surgeries. But I like it because it's a little bit thicker and it stays on better for anal intercourse. And again, that's something, it's medical grade, but you can buy it online. And all of these, they're not warming, tingling, sparkling, glittering. They're just like straight up lubricants. Anything that like does any of those things, I don't recommend you put it on your genital area. And then, home-based products. So, just being mindful that any like a Vaseline or a petroleum-based product can hang out on your tissues, and that can harbor bacteria, which puts you at a higher risk for infection. So some of the more natural lubricants I recommend are either olive oil or coconut oil. And those are excellent. but you can't use oil lubricants with latex condoms. So I tell people, if you're using a latex condom, you can't use oil-based lubricants like olive oil or coconut oil because it can tear the condom.
Okay.
So that's
coconut oil.
Yeah, and making sure it's a fresh olive oil, a fresh jar of coconut oil.
Yeah, real oil.
Yeah, you don't want to be digging your hands into a jar of coconut oil, like, clean jar that's new. Again, we're putting these on intimate, sensitive tissues. You don't want to cook.
Get one for the bedroom. Got it.
Yes. Yeah. Get a fresh one.
Go in the pantry and grab
it. Are you frying chicken up
here? Another use for my coconut oil.
I know. So, and just thinking about, because these are going on intimate areas, we don't want to introduce bacteria into that big jar and then use it on our personal tissue. So, but I think lubricants are, definitely helpful. If people have day-to-day dryness, I usually tell them to use coconut oil, or even vitamin E oil is another oil they can use just for dryness, which, if you're reaching menopause, sometimes if you're on a birth control, sometimes if you're breastfeeding or lactating, you can have more dryness where you need more day-to-day moisture in the area.
Perfect. This is all good.
Yeah, these are great questions, because these are things that people don't think about, but women are experiencing.
That's why I was so excited to talk to you, because, and then we were supposed to talk last week. So
yeah,
I had a lot of time. Okay. And we're not talking to her. Well, then that gave me more time to bring.
I love it.
We talk about, and I ask questions that people won't ask, but they want to know the answers to.
Yeah.
So,
and practical things, practical things that everybody kind of needs to know, that, again, nobody's kind of guiding us on,
This is perfect. I'm glad I asked that question.
Good.
What are some good drinks that can help promote proper lubrication, proper wetness in the vagina?
Some go-to what?
What are some good foods and drinks that can help promote proper lubrication and wetness in the vagina?
So this is a great question. I may not know as much as I could, because I'm, kind of very lightly have a little bit of nutrition background. But I think one of the biggest things is you got to stay hydrated. So your blood is what fuels our body, and blood is made up majority of water, and blood also helps keep our tissues moist and lubricated. So if you're dry, just like you would get dry on the inside of your mouth or chapped lips, you can also have dryness vaginally.
Right.
It's mucosal tissue, so you need moisture. So hydration is a big piece. And just, people are always like, how much water should I drink? And I always say, I want you to drink enough water so that your urine is almost clear.
Oh, that's good.
Because everybody's different. Like, I'm in New Orleans and we're sweating, and I drink a lot of coffee, and then I have a glass of wine. So it's like, I may need a different amount of water than somebody else who may be exercising or maybe isn't in a hot, humid environment. So
they said drink half your body weight in ounces.
Yeah, which is a fine factor. But if you are drinking a ton of coffee, or you're drinking, or you're exercising, you may need more or less. So, but around that is fine, But if you're 300 pounds, you don't need to be drinking 150 ounces of water either.
You ain't doing 100. You're doing a lot of.
So that's one thing, is staying hydrated. And then food-wise, it's really interesting, because estrogen is what helps fuel vaginal lubrication. Right. And if you have low estrogen, which can happen, again, when you're breastfeeding, around menopause, or even when you're taking birth control, some of those birth controls limit our systemic estrogen production. So you'd want to take estrogen promoting foods. Again, the little bit I know about this is like some soy-based products, making sure that you have enough zinc in your diet, enough iron in your diet, enough iodine in your diet. And then just standard vitamins, B6 and fish oil. So, I take a bunch of supplements, and I'm even working with a nutritionist now, because I feel like my hormones are kind of wacky after having kids.
Right.
So those are kind of some of the things I've learned from her, or just, just making sure that we're getting enough nutrition, eating, not eating, limiting processed foods, more vegetables, less sugar, like the basic stuff, to keep your hormonal system kind of functioning optimally.
Okay, you already answered the other question after that.
Which is what?
Oh, the other question was what are some foods to avoid? So you already just answered that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sugar addict, but like, sugar, processed foods, all that stuff.
Yeah. The normal stuff that we shouldn't be eating.
I know.
That we do eat.
But, in COVID, I mean, who's not doing quarantine?
I know, right?
It's because of the pandemic. I look like this guy. Speaking of the pandemic, how has this pandemic positively and negatively affected whispering to the vaginas?
Both. I speak from even personal experience. I mean, I think as moms and as working moms or women in today's society, we are running a million miles a minute. And we are multitasking, we are on social media, we are working from our phones, and I mean, all the things. And so I think what we can all probably agree upon is that it helped us slow down. Like we all needed to slow down. We need to spend more time at home, more time with our families, more time with our kids. So in a positive way, that helped, I think, a lot of people, including myself. Yeah. I think the hard part about vaginas is that women weren't able to get the care that they were getting before. Childbirth classes were canceled. Yeah. Doctor's appointments were limited. Even birth, they were really kind of controlling, like, when you can come in to get induced, what partners you can have, and doulas weren't being allowed, and, leaving the hospital within a day and not getting lactation support. And so I think it really created a lot of complications. Physical therapy was on hold for in-person sessions. So I think it had a big impact in that way. We reopened my clinic about a month ago in New Orleans, and I've just been blown away by the support people have given us, and that they've wanted to come back. They're like, hey, we're waiting for you to reopen so we can come back. And that has been amazing to be able to continue to help them. So,
I know that they had in early pandemic that New Orleans was one of the ones that had a high per capita who were affected by COVID. Yes. So how did you feel like during that time finding out that information and how serious it was?
Yeah, so I think as a parent, and as a business owner, you're like, kind of like, it's the first 2 weeks were like I was totally anxious. I did feel a little bit of relief that as a business owner, I had the ability to say, I'm closing the business. Like I didn't have to check in with a boss or a hospital administrator. Yeah. Like I was like, hey, I'm home with my kids. I can kind of like put us in our little bubble and keep us safe. But then there was opportunity there to help continue to reach women. So we started offering online pelvic floor classes for women about to give birth. Yeah. So we're like, okay, we can reach hundreds of women with these classes because they can't attend childbirth classes, and we can do postpartum recovery classes and just give information about how to help them, recover because they're not able to see their PTs or doctors. So I think it really helped us get a little bit creative and have a little space to hey, how are some other ways that we can continue to help our community, even though we can't do one-on-one, But New Orleans is doing better. Cases are rising again because we reopened. Yeah. But I think because we were hit so hard so early that for the most part, our community is really respectful of the guidelines. I mean, people wear their masks. I think we're not, having huge block parties and bars aren't open 100%. So I think we've been really mindful about, trying to do the best we can to keep it at bay because we know how bad it can get and how fast that can happen.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of women suffer from endometriosis. Yeah. And what part do you play in treatment? Like, how do you help, one who is suffering from this disorder?
I have a girlfriend that suffers from this.
Yeah, it's interesting because endometriosis is when the uterine lining, which is typically on, the inside of the uterus and that we shed it during our menstruation, is actually growing on the outside of the uterus. And it can cause a lot of adhesions, quite a bit of pain, heavy bleeding. Yeah. And more women have it than we even are getting diagnosed. And so when you have these, painful periods, when you're a teenager and you're like cramping over, curled over, missing school, like, that's actually not normal. And I think if we can start picking up on that a little bit sooner, we're able to help women sooner. The only way to really treat it effectively is to have surgery. So to have surgery to remove some of the lesions. And then as a physical therapist, often sometimes women have pelvic pain. So tight muscles in the vaginal area, tight abdominal wall muscles, maybe some bowel or pooping issues where we can help them kind of relax some of their muscles and tissues and coach them on breathing and stretching to help manage the symptoms.
Oh, awesome. So I know when I first had my first child and I got home within a week and I needed to go. I need to go poo. I need to take a shit. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
It was so painful.
Yeah.
I mean, I was suffering it and I felt it. You know, I could feel the pressure, but nothing was coming out. And I was having the hardest time. And my fiance, now my husband, did not understand how much pain I was in. I was like, it won't come out. I can't get it out. I don't know what to do. So
he didn't help you? He didn't try to pull it out?
He panicked. He panicked and then he did one of his episodes. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So, and I had never experienced that before, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. You're not alone, Keita. You are not alone. That is, some women are like, that first poop was worse than birth. You know, because it's very intense. And again, it's one of those things that we're just not proactively educating women on. And I actually posted a video about how to take a poop after giving birth on Instagram, and it had like tens of thousands of views, which shows you that like people want to know this information. And so, I mean, I tell people like be proactive about staying hydrated, taking stool softeners, using a squatty potty, kind of supporting that area with your hand so that you're not like straining when your vaginal tissues are really vulnerable. And you are not alone, and I'm sorry that you had that experience for sure.
If I knew you did, I would have pulled it out. That's what friends are for.
That is what friends are for.
Okay, so I want to ask a question about rough sex and vagina walls and the muscle. Like, I know rough sex is rough sex, but if it's painful, do you go then get help?
You know, my rule of thumb is as a therapist professionally and as a woman is that pain is a signal that something isn't right. And it's either not physically right, it's not emotionally right, and that it's okay to put up a boundary to kind of to protect that area. I think what can happen sometimes is that if we push through and we're like, no, I'll take the pain, then we think, it's almost like we kind of feel like we're strong because of that. But, you know, sometimes sexual pain, it's interesting because sometimes it can border on like a so good it hurts kind of thing, especially if it's a rougher form of intercourse. But sometimes it's just pain. And I'm like, don't push through that. Like, you want to respect your body. Like, what would we tell our daughters, right? Like, if they're like, this hurts, you would be like, well, then take a break, step back, work with a professional, work with a therapist, try a different position, you know, and see if there's a way that you can make it pleasurable and not just tolerable. Because I think is in the spirit of kind of honoring our bodies, it shouldn't be something you just have to deal with or something that's tolerable. Sex should be pleasurable. So I kind of always lean into that aspect when somebody's kind of thinking about pain and intercourse.
So I had anal one time, and my anal walls didn't close for a week. Okay. Is there something you could tell me as to why this happened and what I could have done to make my anus close sooner?
So what do you mean it didn't close? Like the sphincter stayed open and you were having leakage, or you were?
Yes. So it stayed open. I didn't have, you know, the muscle that you can use like when you have to pass gas.
To like tighten up?
Yes. I didn't have that for a whole week. And I went to the doctor.
You was just shitting.
I went to the doctor. I just felt like they were like judging me, like they didn't help me. But what advice can you give me? Not that it's happened again, because I won't really do it again that much.
Traumatized.
No, because the thing is, I find anal to be pleasurable. But I can't get out of my mind the experience I had. So is there something you could tell me that something I could use maybe, or something you could tell me that I could do to make this close back immediately? Because I don't want to lose the muscle. And that's what I was afraid of, because I didn't have that muscle. It after that, it did close back and it went back to whatever, but I didn't have that for a full week and I was afraid.
That's interesting.
So sizes or something you could tell me?
Yeah, so I haven't had any patients come in kind of with that same experience, and they just may not be telling me about it. But there's two things I think I always, kind of encourage women is that one, you need to train your muscles to do what you want, how you want them to perform.
It's my fault.
No. So there are actually these things called dilators, which look like tampons of different sizes. So I tell people like, hey, if you need to be able to like insert a penis of a certain size or a dildo of a certain size into your vagina, like you need to train your vagina to be able to tolerate that, right? Or to be able to kind of insert that, relax completely with it. And then so you can do that anally as well to kind of help yourself not tense up, or to help yourself know how to kind of contract and do those Kegel exercises after. Yeah. So the same way I tell people, if you're going to go run a 10K race, you just don't put on your tennis shoes and run. Like you have to train your body to how to do that. So it's the same thing in this area. So you could use dilators to train yourself. And then afterwards, making sure that you can work with a therapist for this, for knowing how to contract those muscles to kind of close them. And contractions are Kegel exercises. Yeah. So making sure that you have good tension and good coordination of those muscles to know how to kind of recontract those muscles afterwards. So
because you're that's great. I'm gonna look for that. Because you're a vagina whisperer, do you ever get DMs of vaginas and or of penises asking questions?
Yeah, so I definitely get DMs of vaginas, and I prefer that they don't send them actually, because and it's not because I don't want to look at people. It's because as a medical provider, you need to be under the care of a medical provider in order to give medical advice, right? So, what I put out there on Instagram is not individualized advice. This is saying, hey, this is information. This is, information and research. Talk to a medical provider about it. And I can't diagnose somebody who I'm not working with, so I always say like, hey, listen, you've got to really work one-on-one with a therapist or a medical provider. So that's one thing.
Send you a picture of my vagina. Got
right,
it.
Correct. So the second thing is I don't get penis pictures, but I get a lot of men, and I'm going to assume they're men because their pictures are men, who are like trying to pick you up through DMs. Like, and it's sexist and it's disrespectful. And I'm like, who has the time or the capacity to like put it into randomly messaging women on
and think it's okay.
I mean, it feels like a cat call. It feels like a cat call walking down the street. And so I find it, and I've always been tempted to like snapshot them and be like, this is somebody's son, husband, father. But I don't do that. But I'm just like, delete. But I think it's really discouraging to be, as a woman, to feel like, just putting yourself out there as a human, people think they have the right to approach you in that way.
And that's the only thing that you can offer them. Pretty much. Out of all the education, all the information you've given, this is what they want to revert to.
Yeah, and so a piece of me kind of gets a little snarky. I'm like, ugh, like get a life, But I mean, you think you shoot 100 messages out there, maybe one person will be interested, but I'm not interested. But it's
sorry,
not sorry, right?
So
go ahead.
There's a question. I dated this guy some time ago, and I don't know if he taught me how to squeeze, like during sex, when he's inside of me, he would say press down or squeeze. I don't know what it was, and I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. So until I learned, like after a few more episodes, like, oh, this is what he needs. And so what is that? I still don't know. Is it like part of Kegling?
Yeah, likely. So, these muscles help close the urethral sphincter to keep urine in, help close the anal sphincter to keep poop and gas in, and they close the vagina. Okay. So, yes, those contractions, a Kegel is a contraction of those vaginal wall muscles. So, likely that can help kind of increase, the sensation and the kind of the closure around a penis if you're having sex, or a dildo or whatever. But yeah, that's a Kegel. What he's asking is likely a Kegel.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you said dildo. Great. So you suggest that people, because when you're having sex with a toy, there's no way to say you're doing it wrong, because a person will say this is not right, this is wrong. How do you know that you're doing it right?
If you're using like a mechanical device or a dildo?
Yeah.
I think it's right if it feels good to you. Like, I actually think that who's to say that other person knows that they're doing it right?
Exactly.
To me, I actually encourage people to explore with their own bodies, because when you have another partner or person in the room, it's a little bit, again, there are some religious views and more conservative views that go into that, and that is totally fine, and I respect those. Yeah. But I think if you don't know what feels good to you, how can you communicate that to someone else what feels good to you?
Makes sense.
So I personally think it's healthy and fine and normal. And again, most of us don't connect with this part of our body. So I think if we can do our own work, that helps us be able to connect with other people as well. So
I love it. I masturbate all the time.
So how early are you going to have the sex talk with your boys?
That's a great question. My husband has definitely volunteered me to do it. So
because you're the professional.
I'm a professional. He's like, you're doing it. And I'm like, you're the dad. He's like, well, you're the expert, and I'm together. I mean, I think honestly, as soon as they're starting to reach puberty, I mean, now they even use technical terms. They say penis and they say vagina, and we don't. I have a friend who said she's a never nude, like she doesn't really walk around naked. I'm like, oh, I'm an always nude. Like I have to be like, when am I supposed to not let them see me without clothes on? Because there's a line, and I may cross it and not even know I've crossed it, So, as early as I think that they start asking questions, when they start piquing, like their curiosity starts, peaking, I think it's okay to start having those conversations. I mean, they ask me now, where do babies come from? My personal, I'm like, I don't say from God, or I'm like, okay, listen, this is, mommy and daddy makes babies, and the baby comes out of this hole of my body. I mean, the baby's in my belly, and then this is how it exits. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I want to see it. And I was like, oh, let's not do that, I mean, really, they're like, which hole? And I'm like,
yeah.
The one on the photo, So,
I've even shown my kids a video.
Oh, that's amazing.
Everything's on the internet. So I said, well, let's watch this little movie. And I said, it doesn't always come from the vaginal area. It can also be a cesarean.
Belly. Yeah.
So it's good for them to ask those questions. And I feel like once they ask, that means it's fair game. Then they want to know. It's not like I pushed it on them. Yeah. So because they asked me, I said, well, let's look it up. And then we looked it up. So
yeah. And I think as parents, if we're open, I mean, I don't ever, we always have these kind of dreams of how we want to raise our kids, and we hope that we do the best job. But I want them to come to me with these questions. Right. I want the door to be open, even if it's uncomfortable. I'd rather them come to me and know that they can ask them questions than shoot them down, and then they get timid or shy, and then that door's closed.
Yeah, exactly. And they learn. Is your son still going down your shirt, or have you won him off?
100%.
What is to push him, or not really push him away, but no, you can't do that, because that's a comfort for them. They've been doing it their life, right?
I know.
So
I love that question
right now.
So, it's two things. That one, he does it in front of other people a lot. So he's 3, and it is a comfort for him. So he does it in front of other people, and I'll say nobody, not in front of other people. So kind of put a boundary there a little bit. Yeah. Or 2, I'll say you have to ask, because sometimes I'm touched out. I need the hands off of me, So sometimes I'll say, buddy, I need you to ask. And if he says, can I do it? And sometimes I'll say no. And I said, mommy's got to say no sometimes. I'm not always going to say yes. And so, kind of letting him know that I've got some boundaries too, that I need space. But 100%. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm just like, oh, stop being so handsy, buddy. It's too much. So.
Just me. Well, my girls have been breastfeeding for some time now, but just oh, mommy, I just want to love on you. And I'm like, well, I need some space. I really don't want to, I don't feel like hugging. I just gave you a hug 3 minutes ago. It's
right now, everybody's quarantining. Everybody knows about COVID. So I'm like, social distance. Social distance.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, Sara, it was great speaking with you. We are so happy you.
I was so excited.
Oh, y'all too. Thank you for your patience. I know
our invitation. And we just want you to let everybody know where they can find you. Like, what are your handles on your social media?
So I'm on Instagram as the Vagina Whisperer. So it's the_Vagina_Whisperer, and just, you know, share a lot of tips about all your lady bit stuff and life and motherhood and all the things. And my website is thevaginawhisperer.com. So we have a lot of blog posts on there just about all the things that people want to know about. And, you know, people are always saying, can you write something about this, write something about this? So definitely kind of an open space to ask questions, which we feel like is important.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
We do have merchandise, so we want you to go to www.TALKinPINk.com and select something from our merchandise, and we would love to send it to you, unless you want me to select something.
I'll select it. I'm sure. I don't get a lot of gifts. I will do that. Thank you. Y'all are too much. Thank y'all so much. This was so much fun. Y'all are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye, you guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye, you too. That was fun.
It was so much fun. I'm so glad we did that.
Me too. Yeah, because I was learning and I was like in the throes of like knowing more.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't think an hour was enough with her.
Nah.
She answered all of my questions I had. And yeah.
What are you eating? Mentos?
The fresh maker.
You said you brushed your teeth. You really need to have a Mentos?
I haven't gone anywhere, but you know.
I'm going to take a nap.
We can do it now, girl. We worked our day today.
We worked the whole day. I'm so proud of us.
Now we can take off our clothes for real.
All right. Pinkies. It's Talking Pink. I'm Keita.
Rachel.
We'll see you next time. Bye. Peace.